What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're checking out 7 more weird knives. And if you watched my first weird knives video, that one was focused more on function, weird deployment methods, field strip technology. Could have easily been called 7 innovative knives. This one is going to be less so, a little bit weirder, a little bit less innovation, and so let's dive in. We'll start with what's probably my most unhinged knife purchase. Still not sure why I picked this up. It's still a fun one though. So this is actually a survival knife from Schrade called the Guide Master. Model is SCHF39, and the knife itself honestly isn't that weird. This is a survival knife, but unlike those Rambo style where they store everything in the handle, this is going to be a significant step up in quality. We have a full tang blade here. Let's actually get the knife out first. So nothing really unusual about the knife itself. Over 10 inches, I think 10.375 inch overall length, 8CR13 MOV. Don't think I've gotten much use out of this. The kind of star of the show here is gonna be the items on the sheath. So all of the survival items are stored on the sheath. Some come with it. There is some storage to put your own. So we have some sharpening stones, 120 and 600 grit, one on either side. We do have a removable ferro rod as well as a belt clip. We have this handle here that's meant to be a grip on here. That is removable, and there's a compartment inside, so nothing comes stored in there out of the box. You can put your own things in there like tinder, like slim small items, whatever you want to put in there, some small tweezers or just anything that you can imagine that actually fits in that cavity you can store in there. It's also completely removable, and you can leave it off if you don't want it for whatever reason, but it does have additional functionality with those finger grooves there, which we'll see in a second here. So flipping it around, this is where it starts to get a little bit weirder. On the back, we have onboard storage for 12mm ball bearings, and these are meant to be paired with the onboard slingshot that is built into the sheath of this knife, GFN sheath. I have to be a little bit careful here because my tube needs replacing. You can see it's broken. I don't want this snapping back and hitting me in the eye, but this is actually a completely functional slingshot. Maybe not the most comfortable overall. It's a little bit unwieldy with the knife in there. Maybe you can use it without the knife in there. There's a lot of setup for using it though. A little bit unwieldy and just kind of a longer tail than you really need there, but it's for sure usable. These forks are also foldable, so you can loosen these up right here, slide these inwards and fold the fork in if you're not using it and you want it a little bit more out of the way. Otherwise, this is just kind of dangling here from the bottom of the sheath. Now, the reason it's not the most practical is in all likelihood, if you come across some small game, this is going to be clipped to your belt, it's going to be clipped to your bag, and you're going to have to remove it. It's going to cause a lot of commotion, and most likely whatever you're going after is going to run off. And so this is more for, I think, plinking than anything else. This is a fun little knife. It's not super expensive. I think they were around 40 bucks at the time. They are discontinued now, so I don't know that you can really find it, but kind of a cool one. It's pretty funny. I don't know, you know, it wasn't a practical knife. I probably shouldn't have picked it up, but I still enjoy this one. And the tubes, although this one has the Schrade, I forget what they call this, like hammock or something like that. It's regular tubes, so you can just replace this with any slingshot tubes, even though it's discontinued and they probably don't sell the consumables replacements. You can probably still get a slingshot tube that works with this no problem whatsoever. So that's number 1 on our list. I think the only fixed blade, I guess there's a couple that could be defined as fixed blades, but hard to say what you want to call them. They are weird. And so the next one is just kind of a weird shaped knife. This is the CountyComm Re-Action. I've done a video on this one before. D2 steel carbon fiber scales here, and this is kind of just a weird shape. It's a square shape, almost like a wallet or credit card shape, and it's actually pretty functional. It has this thumb hole deployment. You can spidey flick that open. Really great action on it. Now, these were limited to 1,000. You can see this one's 802 out of 1,000, but they do have newer versions. I know right now there's a green micarta version that's limited to 500 that's on sale for about $45. So if you want one of these, you can still pick it up, just not in carbon fiber. And it's not the most comfortable in hand. It's a little bit too thick overall, but it's just got such a unique and different look. Even people who aren't into knives know that this is a weird looking knife. And so I thought this one was appropriate for the list. Maybe one of the more normal ones that we're gonna see though, so let's get that down and get on to number 3, which is a knife that I received as a gift. My mom gave it to me knowing that I was into knives. Not really my normal style of knives, but still appreciate it. Obviously, you appreciate any gifts and the thoughtfulness that goes into those. So this is the Franklin Mint Harley Davidson Road King engine version. And so you can see this looks like a part of a motorcycle, and flipping it over, they have this little shield in here. That's a little bit offset, but shield showing that it's made by Franklin Mint. Nail nick deployment, so let's get this out of there so we can take a look at this fully deployed, and you'll see the etching has that Road King. Now, I don't own a Harley, so this has less significance for me. I do appreciate them, I just don't have one, but you can see that Road King etch, and it says Road King in cursive there with the FM copyright on the tank stamp. Stainless, made in China, and this is a non-locking knife as well. Not really a slip joint, maybe it is. If there's a spring in there, it's pretty weak. It just seems to kind of move around in there, so not a super powerful spring if there even is one in the back, but kind of a cool looking knife, I'll give it that for sure. Not the most practical user, but especially because this is just so bulky to put in your pocket. It's still a fun one though. It's definitely unique. Moving on to number 4, we have a similar shaped knife, although non-folding, to our Re-Action. This is the JHO Lynx, the original version. This one's no longer available, but there's an upgraded version with M390. This one is S35VN. It was a little bit cheaper than the M390. It does come with this cardboard sheath. I think it even came with an extra, if I remember correctly. But you can see we have this kind of grid pattern here for grippiness on the top half of that. Has a flat grind down to this edge that goes all the way across here. And then, yeah, pretty decent steel overall. S35VN is great. And so this is, I think it was around $90, which is a little bit much. It is actually great for opening packages, whatever the case may be. Also passes through a lot of like security, because a lot of times they don't check your wallet. You just put it in a little basket and slide it through. You have metal cards and other things in there. A lot better quality, honestly, than those foldable plastic credit card knives, and so thought this one was pretty unique. This is the first with that style that I've ever gotten. Has some jimping along the spine. It is actually very, very well made. I don't have any of their other knives, but they do make some weird and funky knives, so I may pick up more in the future, but this is definitely a cool one. We'll get that down on the table and move on to a knife from Oknife. This is called the Nightclaw. Won this one in a giveaway from Big Red. Swapped out those scales. I don't remember if I got the scales from him, or I think I got them in an Olight sale. I'm not 100% sure though, but swapped out the scales. You can see it has this jeweled button on here that is our only method of deployment. Has this hawkbill blade that's under an inch long. I think this said 0.92 inches long. This whole thing weighs 1.34 ounces. You have a hole at the top so you can add it to like a ball chain necklace, and D2 steel on here. It's actually got a nice little edge on there, fun to fidget with. It looks like at one point they had considered doing a cutout, because we have a nail nick, but you can't access the nail nick when it's closed, and so I'm guessing this went through some design revisions and that just is a remnant of that. But it's still a pretty cool knife. I think these were pretty cheap also, maybe like $30 full price, but was back when Oknife was doing, or Olight was doing regular sales, and so I'm sure you could have gotten this a decent bit cheaper than that. So from there, we're going to move back to a knife similar to the JHO Lynx, but a little bit different. This is from Mummert Knives, and it's called their Cutter Card. Both of these are credit card size, so they can slot right into your wallet. I think the dimensions on it is about 2.1 inches wide, 3.4 inches tall, and they're super slim. This one's actually a little bit slimmer than the Lynx, and that's because it's titanium. And so this one doesn't have the same cutting edge. This one went with a corner cutting edge, so you can see it goes about halfway down the card here, and then probably about a third of the bottom of the card. Has a bunch with different unique images on the front. A lot have this same imagery on the back, or a variation of this imagery on the back, but we'll have different kind of playing card style imagery on the front, which is really cool. Some of them are a little bit more complex and intricate, and you end up paying a little bit more for that. Now, if you're familiar with titanium, you know it does not hold an edge well. It's super chippy and just not great for an edge, which is why we don't see many titanium blades. This one is made with an impregnated tungsten carbide, and so we have this carbidized edge. You can see that on the corner here that's sharpened, and so that's how it's able to maintain that edge. These come in like this little plastic sleeve instead of that cardboard. Not as good looking as the cardboard. I mean, that's kind of a funny thing to say, because cardboard's not all that good looking either, but doesn't really seem to cut up your wallet much if you store it without it. But I do like to store it in the sleeve if I know I'm just going to be leaving it in a wallet. If it's carrying it for a day, I'll carry it without the sleeve, and it's never damaged a wallet by doing that, but definitely a risk you're taking without that sleeve. Really cool item though. These are also somewhat pricey. I think these are around $80 to $90 or so. Got this one at a local show, but you can order them online when they are in stock as well. And so that's going to take us to our last one, and this is probably the most familiar, the most popular of these weird knives, but did have to include it on a list at some point, so it made this list. And this is the Boker Magnum Rainbow Mermaid knife, and so definitely was popular several years back. Not a very good knife, to be honest. I think it's $440 on the steel. The action on this is terrible, but it's just so funny and cool looking. Definitely need to put a little bit of wrist in there when you're flicking this open. The flipper tab is actually that mermaid tail, which is kind of cool, and it has that rainbow finish on it. It is a liner lock, and there's some little holes in the blade to mimic bubbles. We have our mermaid up here, as well as that tail with all the kind of scale texturing on there. Pocket clip is tip down carry, and I don't think reversible. Yeah, not reversible, but yeah, not a great action. You just get this because it's a weird knife. I don't think it was super pricey either. I think these were around $30 when I purchased this. I just checked before making this video and they were about $35, so they may have went up a little bit, but yeah, $440 says right there on the blade. But that rounds out my list of 7 more weird knives. I have several more of these videos to make, trying to kind of parse it down to different categories so they are a little bit more manageable in length. But let me know which is your favorite, which was the weirdest of these knives, and what weird knives you have in your collection down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, or joining the channel as a member. Definitely check out that previous 7 weird knives video if you haven't already. I'll put a link up in the upper right hand corner. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.